Good afternoon or good morning, depending on which part of Australia we're joining you from or joining you in today. My name is Bev Lang and I'm the Executive Officer at Elder Abuse Action Australia. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and where we're meeting today, and recognising their continuing connection to land, water and culture. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and in particular the elders that are in my area or the land that I'm on today, which is Darkinjung land on the central coast of New South Wales. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session. These sessions give our organisation members the opportunity to showcase their work and share this knowledge and experience with a growing audience of people from the sector and community. Some housekeeping before I introduce our speaker today. The session is being recorded and will be shared with everyone who has registered, as well as on the EAAA website and on our YouTube channel. Closed captions have been enabled for this session, so if you need them, they're on the bottom part of your Zoom screen under the CC tab. You'll be able to find that very easily. Please use the chat function to ask questions during the session. We ask that you keep your questions related to the content of this session. And as always, please keep interactions respectful to both the speaker and the fellow participants and registrants today. At the conclusion of today's presentation, your questions will be presented to our speaker. Should be the case that we don't get to answer all the questions, I'm sure we can reach out to Sophie for some additional responses at a later point. Today's presentation will include some interactive polls, which will pop up on your screen for a quick response, and we'll share the results immediately. And finally, we'd appreciate your feedback in the survey that will be sent to you at the end of the webinar. And now for today's presentation. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's session featuring one of Australia's big four banks, Westpac, a long-standing EAAA member, and our presenter will share insights into the evolving landscape of financial abuse and fraud. We are very pleased to have with us today Sophie Gee, Executive Manager, Fraud Intelligence at Westpac, who will present Scam or Safe. Could you tell the difference? Sophie's role involves early identification of new trends within the frauds and scam space and communication of what's identified to the bank and broader community. She's particularly passionate about ensuring everyone has the tools and information they need to protect themselves from scams. Fraud and scams are becoming increasingly sophisticated and harder to detect. Today, we'll explore how they operate, the warning signs to look out for, and how they can intersect with the financial abuse of older people. Please join me today in welcoming our speaker, Sophie Gee.
Hi, welcome, and thank you for coming to today's session. You'll have to forgive me, I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm going to take a sip of water from time to time, but I'm really excited about today. As I said, my name is Sophie Gee. I'm the Executive Manager for Fraud Intelligence within our fraud prevention team at Westpac, which is also sort of known as our fraud analytics team. I've worked in fraud intelligence for the past 6 years at Westpac, and it is essentially my job to identify fraud and scam trends early and make sure that they're communicated to our community the way that they should be. So for today's session, we'll be talking through some of the most common scam types and scam scenarios we see, how to identify them in the moment, and how to protect yourself. It's generally our belief that understanding scams and how they can evolve helps everyone stay safe. And additionally, sharing information about scams with family, friends, and your community is one of the best ways to raise awareness and also, really importantly, reduce stigma. As I know, because from my job, scammers are constantly finding new ways to target people. So the more information we share and the more we can make time to talk about scams, the better. So the session will take about 45 minutes and is interactive. So we encourage you to take part in the activities if you would like to, and we will have time at the end for questions. If you need more support, you can visit our website, which is accessible and screen reader friendly. You can connect with a team member at your local Westpac branch. And if you don't bank with Westpac, you can still use the support resources we offer on our website, and you can take any useful tips to share them with your family and your friends. Before we start, I would just like to read the acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, and I'd also like to pay respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present. As Australia's first bank, we acknowledge our role in supporting an inclusive and diverse nation where all our cultural backgrounds are recognised and respected. Okay. To start, we'll explain the difference between a fraud and a scam. It's not uncommon for the words fraud and scam to be used interchangeably or as if they sort of mean the same thing, but in banking, they have different meanings and it can affect who is responsible for any financial loss. So, to start, fraud is what we call instances where you didn't authorize the transaction or the way that money was taken or your account was compromised. So, an obvious example would be if your credit card was lost or stolen. In this instance, you haven't shared your details with anyone, but somebody else has used your card to make a purchase without your knowledge. A scam, however, is when you willingly participate in the transaction or the compromise itself, but you were misled about its purpose or its benefit. For example, if you were to receive a call from someone pretending to be from your bank's fraud team, and as part of that conversation, you were asked to send your funds to another account to keep them safe. In that instance, if you were to believe the caller and make the transfer, we would call it a scam. When a scam happens, the bank attempts to recover funds by contacting the receiving bank and every other bank after that if necessary. But however, recovery is not guaranteed, especially if the money has already been moved or withdrawn. Scams can be really difficult to detect, even if you're using your usual device and security codes, which is why prevention and early action are critical. If you suspect a scam or notice unusual activity, we recommend you contact your bank immediately, because that essentially improves the chance of recovery. And remember, each case is assessed individually, and we always consider the details of what happened before making a decision. All right. Last year, Australians reported losses of $2.18 billion to scams, according to the National Anti-Scam Centre Targeting Scams report for 2025. The average loss per report was $4,527, although it goes without saying that some people lost significantly more than that. We should note, though, that these figures may be underestimated because they only include reported scams, and many scams aren't reported because people don't realize that they have been scammed. They feel too embarrassed to report or too upset, or they're just unsure where to report. The top five scam types in 2025, just purely by financial loss, according to the NASC's targeting scam report, are as follows. Investment scams for $837.7 million. These scams essentially promise high returns with low risk. And they include the obvious of sort of a crypto scam, but also less obvious sort of products like shares, real estate, overseas real estate, term deposits, and even sort of lending, which is often advertised on Facebook Marketplace. Payment redirection for $166.8 million. We also tend to call this business email compromise within the bank. These are super sophisticated scams. They tend to involve a fake but convincing email or call requesting payment to a new or updated account. It's often involves some level of email compromise. But I will say, while we call them business email compromise scams, which implies that it affects businesses primarily, it has a really strong presence in property settlements, particularly recently. Romance scams for $139.9 million, where scammers build fake relationships in order to ask for money. I will say as well, friendship scams can be included in this. Um, the common element is not necessarily romantic, it's more just that emotional bond. Phishing for $97.6 million, which involves scammers sending fake emails or texts with a link to a fake website. We would all be pretty aware of these, receiving texts from Australia Post, Coles, rewards, things like that. Is designed essentially to steal your personal information or money. And finally, remote access, $69.9 million, where scammers will pose as tech support, government agencies or banks. Usually this can be like NBN, Microsoft, and the purpose is to gain remote access to your devices through downloading remote software. I will say again, these are just the reported loss numbers, so the actual losses could be and very likely are much higher. For this session, this is the plan. We will cover the following personal information, including what it actually is and why it's important to keep it safe, how scammers specifically manipulate people into sharing personal information or handing over their money, the different types of scams and fraud, using real life examples to help you spot the warning signs, examples that we've come across in the bank, steps that you can take to protect yourself and how we can help, and support and reporting resources, which will include not only where to get help, but how to report scams and some tools to keep you informed. All right, we will start with personal information. So, personal information is really, really valuable. It can be used in scam and fraud attempts, including identity theft. Personal information essentially means any data or information that can identify you. So this can include banking and credit details like your password, your PIN, login details, any employment records, personal details, your name, your signature, address, phone number, date of birth, photos or video recordings, particularly when we're getting to the deep fake sort of side of things, AI side of things. Sensitive information, so health, ethnicity, even things like political views, IP addresses, location data, and biometrics, such as facial recognition data. Cybercriminals can get your information through data breaches, phishing, or by collecting details you share on social media or online. So your birthday, your job history, where you live, and achievements even can help scammers pretend to be someone you trust, like your bank or your family, making scams more convincing. To protect yourself, check what and how much you share online. Consider limiting who can actually access your social media profile and your online presence, and stay informed about data breaches. You can also use tools like haveibeenowned.com, which is spelled have I been, PWNED.com, to check if your data has been exposed. Remember, it's always important to remember to never enter sensitive information like your banking passwords on any website, even legitimate ones, and always keep your credentials private. Many people believe that scams are easy to recognize, but that's a myth. Scams are skilled. They use emotion, urgency, technology to appear genuine and trustworthy. Often they pretend to be really trusted organizations like banks, government agencies, telcos, or even people you know, to lower your guard. When we're calm, we make logical and rational decisions, but strong emotions like fear, excitement, anger, or exhaustion can take over. And when this happens, our instinctive reactions can override careful thinking. Everyday stress affects everyone. Being educated or tech savvy does not make you immune from scams. And common scam scenarios that can exploit this include a call from your bank asking you to act urgently, a late night message from someone you vaguely know asking for help, and a bill reminder when you're busy or overwhelmed. Remember, these situations are designed to catch you in a vulnerable moment. They're designed to hit you late at night, during school pickup, moments where you're not quite there. Um, so if you feel a strong emotional reaction, take these steps. Pause before you act, take a moment, slow your breathing, even as it can help you to think more clearly. Talk to someone you trust, really importantly. Scammers rely on urgency and isolation. You have to act urgently so you don't have time to talk to somebody else, but a quick check-in can really break that pressure. And make sure you delay decisions when you're tired or stressed. If you're exhausted or distracted, avoid making decisions about money or personal information. Giving yourself time can prevent costly mistakes. Um, Perfect. Before we continue, I can just see a question around the have I been owned bit. It is a website where you can enter your personal information, your email, things like that, where you can just see if that has been exposed in a data breach. It's have I been, PWNED.com. And you can enter any of your details there to check. Okay, let's talk about phishing. Phishing is when cybercriminals try to steal personal information or instill harmful software by pretending to be someone you trust. They commonly use emails, text messages, phone calls, fake websites that seem real. We would all be familiar with the text messages, as I said, from Australia Post, things like that. As the telcos really strengthen their defenses, it's really coming through on emails. So I'd be really cognizant of that. The messages are designed to trick you into opening links or sharing sensitive details, and they often include personal information to seem legitimate. As we said before, Australians reported losing over $97 million due to phishing in 2025, and trusted organizations tend to be impersonated more than anything else. So, banks, government agencies to create that sort of urgency and pressure and legitimacy. Okay, we're about to launch a poll in which we'll have you select from the two phone images we're showing on the screen right now with text messages as an example from Westpac. I'm going to read the text messages that are presented, and afterwards, let me know which text message you think is genuine using the poll we've just launched. So, the message on the left says, Westpac alert, a request for a new payer has been made on your account. If this was not done by you, visit clienthelpwestpac.com. The message on the right says, your replacement card is on its way. Want it instantly? A digital version is available now in your mobile banking app. Visit westpac.com.au/digital card. Which one do you think is genuine? I'll give you about 20 seconds to put in your idea. All right. Um, okay, so if you selected the messenger on the left, unfortunately, that is an example of phishing that we have seen. So here the scammer uses the name Westpac to appear legitimate, which may also make the phone group it in with actual messages from Westpac. The link provided, however, is different from our actual website and is missing .com and .au, meaning it was probably created overseas and is unlikely to be a legitimate company website. It's important to remember to never open links or in emails or SMS messages to sign into your banking. Instead, just type the bank's website address yourself, use the official app, or contact the bank however you usually would. And if you ever open an unusual link, turn off your computer or device and contact your bank immediately. The message on the right is an example of a genuine bank notification. So genuine notifications won't rush you and they will give you options on how to contact. You can always verify real messages by checking the banking app, visiting the official website, or calling the number on the back of your card. Here are some ways to stay safe from phishing. Pause and check before you act. Avoid opening any links or attachments that are sent to you from unknown or unexpected sources, even if they feel like they're from someone you know. If you're unsure, check with the sender using a trusted contact method. Have a look at the website address itself. Review the email addresses closely, the URLs, and just the general tone of the message. Be wary of spelling mistakes or unusual formatting, which can sometimes be signs of a scam. Use trusted sources, so always type the website address yourself. So, for example, for us, westpac.com.au instead of using links in messages, and use official apps for banking and other services for messaging and notifications if the option is available. Use multi-factor authentication or one-time passwords or codes that are sent to your email or through text. It adds an extra layer of security so that even if scammers do manage to get your password, MFA makes it harder for them to actually access your accounts. And keep software and antivirus software updated. So regularly update your computer, phone, browser, and antivirus software. Updates essentially fix security weaknesses that scammers try to exploit. And remember, legitimate organizations will never ask you for passwords, banking details, or personal information by email or text. If in doubt, just contact the organization directly using official registered details, not what is provided in the email, text, or the phone call. Okay, next one. Investment scams are one of the most common and financially damaging scams in Australia. Over the past 3 years, Australians have lost more money to investment scams than any other type. And last year alone, as we said, reported losses were over $837 million. Scammers are able to reach you through social media platforms, messaging apps, unsolicited phone calls, and fake websites that contain legitimate inquiry forms to fill in. As you are probably aware, scammers are increasingly using AI-generated fake videos or images known as deepfakes to impersonate well-known public figures and promote fake investment opportunities. You'd be aware likely of Elon Musk being impersonated, maybe Gina Reinhardt, but increasingly we've seen just more niche celebrities be impersonated with maybe more loyal fan bases to appear more legitimate. Essentially, the scams work by exploiting trust in familiar faces, making the offers appear real and credible. But I would say if you see a celebrity or public figure promoting an investment online, just assume it's a scam, especially if it promises quick or guaranteed returns. Okay, let's go through a scenario. This is Jim. Jim wanted to grow his savings, and friends told Jim that cryptocurrency offered quick returns, so he decided to try investing. Jim completed an online search for a crypto company, and after reviewing several websites, he found one that seemed professional, had useful information about how crypto actually works, and instructions on how to deposit and withdraw money. Satisfied, Jim filled in an inquiry form and waited for a call, which the inquiry form showed would be within 24 hours. Just a few hours later, Jim received a call from someone claiming to be a senior advisor from the company. The advisor explained everything really clearly and offered to manage Jim's account, making the process feel really easy and stress-free. Jim began by transferring $10,000 from his mobile banking app to the new investment. At first, he felt unsure about whether the opportunity was actually genuine, but he put his doubts down to being nervous and about investing in cryptocurrency for the first time. The advisor made sure to demonstrate with reports how Jim's investment appeared to grow and provided access to view the balance and make a few small withdrawals to encourage further engagement. This gave Jim confidence, and over the next 8 months, Jim transferred more money. The advisor warned Jim that the bank might actually delay or block transfers and told Jim if the bank asked about the transactions, just to say he was working with an approved advisor and had full control over his money. Jim believed that this wasn't dishonest because he trusted the advisor. One day, Jim tried to withdraw funds, but he couldn't log in. The advisor was unreachable and the website had actually disappeared. A quick search confirmed Jim's worst fear. He had been scammed out of $400,000. Feeling ashamed and embarrassed, Jim did not report the scam to the bank for several months, and by then, the money was gone. Okay. Jim's story shows how investment scams can really feel legitimate even when they're not. They can be really long term, they can be really professional. And yet, scammers use many contact methods, and it is important to remember that not all scams start with unexpected contact. In this example, for instance, Jim completed an online inquiry form expecting an actual follow-up without realizing it may lead to a scam. As awareness of cryptocurrency losses grow, scammers are increasingly promoting familiar products or safer products, such as term deposits and bonds, to appear more credible. This is a real life case from Westpac, New Zealand, where a customer searched online and completed what seemed like a legitimate inquiry form. They received a convincing email and prospectus. I have seen it. It appeared to be from Westpac. The client invested only to later discover the opportunity was fake and they had been scammed. As financial uncertainty increases, individuals tend to look for safer options when investing their money, and scammers know this, and so build professional websites, create LinkedIn profiles for their fake advisors, and provide prospectuses that can exceed 20 pages to appear really genuine. It's important to note that one warning sign on its own doesn't always mean it's a scam. However, when several warning signs appear, take them seriously. Trust your instincts and take time to verify before acting. Some of the common warning signs for investment scams are investments found online and through social media, particularly if the ad is sponsored. Always check for independent reviews when sharing personal or financial information. And note that some scammers will even go to lengths to create fake news articles or some sort of media which talks about the validity of the actual investment. Scammers will also often impersonate legitimate businesses, so it's important to check the URL provided and contact the legitimate company independently to verify the investment or the rate itself. In our example, Jim received a call just 2 hours after submitting an inquiry. If you get a call or an email a lot sooner than you expected, this can really be a warning sign. Additionally, if you feel pressured into making a decision quickly or you're told that the opportunity is only available for a short period of time, that can also really be a warning sign. If you receive a cold call or an email about an investment, immediately treat it with suspicion. It's really unlikely that a genuine company will contact you in that way. If you're unable to manage or access the account without help, Jim was told that only a senior manager could manage his account. However, if an investment is genuine, only you should have full access to it. Like any scam, if you have an uneasy or gut feeling, make sure you listen to it. Jim felt something wasn't quite right, but dismissed the feeling because it was his first time dealing with the company and his first time investing in cryptocurrency. Don't ignore doubts, contact someone outside the situation for a second opinion. You can always come to your bank. Really importantly, Jim was told what to say if the bank asked about the transfers. If anyone tells you what to say or not to say to your bank, it is very likely a scam. Even if it feels truthful, scammers often use manipulation to make the payments go through. I have seen scripts previously provided to victims on what to say to their banks. If it's anything like that, it's not genuine. Inflated interest rates, returns, or promises shouldn't be trusted. Even slightly above market averages can be a scam. Always go to the official company site to verify that rate. And be particularly suspicious of offshore investments in cryptocurrency. These type of investments are harder to verify and they're often used in scams. And many jurisdictions outside Australia have far more relaxed financial oversight and prosecution. So even countries like the UK or those in Western Europe, like Switzerland, Luxembourg, that we're seeing increasingly can be risky. No matter the scam type, scammers are highly skilled and constantly changing their tactics, and they often focus on large transactions to maximize their gain. If you're considering an investment, always use trusted channels such as licensed financial institutions, registered financial planners or advisors, or check official government resources like MoneySmart. For more warning signs and support, visit your bank's website. Remote access scams. A common and growing threat in Australia. In these scams, criminals convince people to download software that gives them remote control of their computer or mobile device, obviously often under false pretenses. They can pretend to be tech support from a well-known companies, so obvious ones are sort of Microsoft, NBN, a bank warning about unusual activity, or a government agency like the ATO offering help or a refund. Once they actually gain access, scammers can steal your personal financial information. They can install harmful software, transfer money from your accounts, or even lock people out of their own devices. Let's go for another example. So, Danny was searching online for accommodation for a family holiday. A pop-up appeared claiming to be from Windows Security, warning her that her device had been compromised and providing Danny with a number to call. When Danny called, the person claimed there had been a breach and said they could help fix the issue. Danny was instructed to download software and follow on-screen prompts, unknowingly giving the scammer full access to her computer. The scammers took control and showed Danny the various hackers that were on her IP. The scammer then asked Danny to sign into her online banking and share security codes sent to her phone, saying they were needed to resolve the problem and catch the hackers. In reality, those security codes approved multiple transactions the scammers made. $380,000 was transferred from Danny's account. Remote access scams can seem different, but they often share the same warning signs. So, unsolicited or unexpected contact, particularly a call, message, or pop-up claiming to be from tech support, your bank, or government agency. Remember, companies like Microsoft and NBN do not include phone numbers in pop-up messages. Any request to download software on an app, particularly AnyDesk, TeamViewer, or Quick Support. They're legitimate tools, but scammers often misuse them to gain full control of your device. Any unusual requests, including for sensitive information like bank security codes, banking details, or passwords. Other common tactics to be aware of include receiving random refunds or deposits. Once scammers have access to your device, money tends to be moved through your own accounts to appear like you've been sent a payment or refund. Any pressure or aggression, if the callers become pushy, hostile, if questioned, you should absolutely disconnect your device. The caller requesting you attend branch to move the funds and staying on the call while you do so. And any unusual payment methods, including using gift cards, cryptocurrency, money transfers, or cash. There are very few circumstances where remote access is required, particularly from tech companies, banks, or the government. And if someone asks for remote access, make independent contact to ensure it's actually required. If something feels wrong, hang up or disconnect from the conversation immediately. Shut down your computer, restart it. The pop-up will very likely not be there. Okay, romance scams. Romance scams are among the most emotionally harmful scams affecting Australians. We're going to open another poll for you to respond with how much you think was lost to romance scams in the last year. We have $837.7 million, $402 million, and $139.9 million. I'll give you about 20 seconds to choose what you think. All right. If you chose $139.9 million, you would be correct, making this the third largest financial loss scam type reported. However, financial loss isn't the only impact. The emotional toll can often be severe and long lasting, and our victims tell us that's often what has impacted them the most. Scammers often reach out via SMS, messaging apps, social media, or dating platforms. Sometimes it can be random as they'll sort of send the messages widely, hoping someone responds, but other times they can really target individuals deliberately. Once contact is made, scammers work to build a relationship over time. Their goal is to earn trust and emotional investment from people who might not ordinarily transfer money otherwise. We've seen romance scams that have unfolded over months or even years before a victim is told to even transfer funds. We're going to talk about both romance scam and romance baiting. So there's one main difference between a romance scam and a romance baiting scam. In a romance scam, the scammer creates an emotional crisis or emergency to justify asking for money. So in this example that we did really see, after 12 months of building trust, Jane asked Peter for money. She explained that before moving to Australia to be with him, she needed to set up her business so she could remain financially independent and avoid placing any financial burden on him. A few weeks later, however, Jane messaged Peter saying she had been mugged while leaving the bank with the money for the business. She claimed the robbers stole everything and expressed concern about whether she could move to Australia at all, as the business was meant to support their future together. This approach and the amount of time they'd been talking strengthened Peter's trust and convinced him to send money. Romance baiting, however, is when instead of asking for money directly, the scammer offers what appears to be a genuine investment opportunity to grow your wealth. So, in this other real example, after 5 months into their online relationship, talking every single day and building a plan for a future together, Terry suggested Bailey invest in cryptocurrency to create financial security and support his children. She spoke confidently about her broker, describing them as helpful, easy to understand, and someone who had helped her achieve financial freedom. After Bailey started to invest large amounts of money, he was no longer able to access the platform. The broker and Terry disappeared. This approach feels less strange because it seems like a financial opportunity rather than a plea for help, and as though there's no actual benefit to the person you're talking to. Though the way you're convinced to send money is different with a romance and a romance baiting scam, they have a common connection, which is both generally start the same way. The scammer emotionally manipulates the person by building trust, taking their money, and then disappearing. The outcome is the same for the person that is scammed. They experience significant emotional distress and financial loss. These are some of the common warning signs of a romance scam. A request to change apps is really important. A scammer will often ask to move conversations to encrypted apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal. It can be a tactic to avoid detection. Avoidance of video calls or meeting in person. The scammer will provide multiple excuses for why they can't show their face while asking for your photos and videos to prove that you're real. Love bombing. Declarations of love, talks of marriage, of a future together within days or weeks are often used to create emotional dependence. Isolation tactics. So they maintain constant contact and discourage you from speaking to your friends or family. And then following that, being told to lie or hide the relationship. If someone instructs you on what to say to your bank or asks you to hide the relationship from those close to you, this is likely to be a scam. And requesting money or introducing you to investment opportunities. Stories about emergencies or promises of investment opportunities, especially involving cryptocurrency, are designed to pressure you into sending money or sharing personal details. If you've heard about the Cambodian scam centers, this is essentially what facilitates a romance baiting scam. They're very sophisticated, but very, very damaging. So here's some important advice. Separate emotions from financial decisions, especially when it comes to someone you've never actually met in person. Be really cautious if asked to invest in high-risk assets like cryptocurrency. If unsure, speak to your bank or a trusted financial advisor before acting, or even just your family. No matter how caring someone seems, scammers are experts at emotional and financial manipulation. And if you feel uncertain, pause, disconnect, and talk to someone you trust, even if you've been told not to. Romance and friendship scams can happen to anyone, especially during times of loneliness or emotional vulnerability. Scammers are skilled manipulators who build trust before exploiting it. Okay. Impersonation scams. So this is where scammers pretend to be a trusted person or organization. They'll often contact you by phone, text, email, or social media to try and convince you to share personal information or send money. Scammers will tend to impersonate telecommunication companies, recruiters or employers, government departments like the ATO, embassies, or state and federal police, friends and family members, and of course, banks. Bank impersonation scams are a common variation, and it's as the name suggests. Scammers pretend to be bank employee, often saying they're from the fraud scam or security team, with the hope that you will share sensitive details about yourself. When we talk to victims, they will often use the word squad, as in the scammer has said they're from the fraud squad. I will say now, most banks don't call their financial crime or their fraud team squads, so that's an early warning sign. These scams are really hard to spot because the messages or the conversations often really appear and sound real, and scammers will use official logos, fake phone numbers, spoofing phone numbers, and convincing language and stories to gain your trust. Okay, another example. Meet Jane. Jane was having an ordinary day when she received a call from someone claiming to be from Westpac. The caller said there were some unusual telephone banking transactions and asked Jane to confirm if they were genuine. Jane said they weren't, as she doesn't use telephone banking. So, sensing Jane's concern, the caller offered to fix the issue straight away. All she had to do was follow their instructions and they would stop the payment. They asked her for her personal details to verify her identity, but then requested her online banking signing details. Jane questioned this, but the caller reassured her it was needed to stop the payment. Wanting to prevent the transactions, Jane shared her customer number and password. The caller then asked for the security code just sent to her phone, saying that it was needed to verify her identity. So Jane shared the code. After a moment, the caller told Jane her account was now secure and gave her a callback number should she have any questions that would take her directly back to the fraud team. A few days later, however, Jane signed into her account and discovered $250,000 was missing. It was at this moment Jane realized she had been scammed and contacted the bank immediately through the app. Here are some impersonation scam warning signs. First of all, it can seem a little bit weird to say, but a British accent is often one of the first signs for a bond scam and an impersonation scam. Unexpected calls or messages claiming to be from your bank, family, or another organization. Any kind of urgent requests which are designed to scare you into acting quickly, including claims of unusual activity, blocked accounts, fines, legal threats. Any request to move your funds into another account for your protection. As a bank, we wouldn't need to do that. We would never need your help in having to secure your funds. Requests to download software or allowed remote access to your device, requests for personal details, passwords, PINs, security codes, and any request for payments to prevent fines or law enforcement action. Here's what we would suggest. Don't trust contact details given to you during the call or the message. Just hang up. Stop responding if the call is threatening or the caller is applying pressure or urgency. And instead, contact your bank or the organization using a trusted method, including the official banking app or your local branch or using a phone number on the organization's official website. Don't send money or move money to another bank until you are verified with the organization that the request is genuine. Legitimate banks will never ask for this. Don't give remote access to your device. Legitimate banks will never ask you for this. And don't share your passwords, PIN, or security codes that are unique to you. Your bank, again, will never ask for these. Okay. Deepfakes. This short video has no sound on purpose, but it just sort of demonstrates how deepfake videos can be created and how convincing they can appear even without audio. So at first, Ben Young, Westpac's head of fraud and my boss, is talking about artificial intelligence, also known as AI. Then the image changes to Tom, one of our video producers. This change is deliberate and demonstrates how deepfakes work. Deepfakes are fake images, voices, or videos that are made to look or sound real. Scammers will use them to pretend to be someone you trust, such as a public figure, a company, or a professional, but also maybe your friends and family increasingly. They're created using artificial intelligence, which can copy a person's face or voice and apply it to another video. These fake videos really don't need to be perfect to be convincing. To someone seeing them for the first time, they can feel real and believable. We know that this type of technology is improving and proliferating quickly, and it's becoming easier for scammers to use. In fact, we're already seeing deepfake videos used on social media, like celebrities promoting giveaways or investment opportunities. Scammers also use this technology to pretend to be real financial institutions or companies offering fake products or investments. The technology essentially allows scams to feel more personal and harder to spot. We're aware of even cases targeting older Australians via fake community groups. They're essentially fake Facebook pages promoting senior activities or local events, which are used to capture card details or trick people into handing over money. That's why it's more important than ever to stop, check, and seek trusted advice before acting. For a deepfake specifically, we would ask you to look for visual inconsistencies, such as audio that doesn't match lip movements, unnatural blinking, eye movements, lighting or shadows, and facial expressions that don't fit the situation. Faces, hands, or jewelry that look uneven or unnatural, and teeth that appear blurred or look like one solid shape. If you're on a video call with someone, you can ask the person to place 3 fingers across their face. AI-generated videos will likely distort when they do this. When viewing images, also check for distorted or unusual hands and fingers or faces that look overly blurred or airbrushed. Vocal inconsistencies are also important in a person's speech, including emphasis on the wrong words, unnatural pauses, failure to respond to changes in tone, and speaking too fast, like I probably am, too slow with glitches at an uneven pace. If you think a familiar voice may have been faked, contact the person using a different method or ask a personal question that only they would know. These steps can help you check if the voice is genuine. All right, finally, fraud affects millions of people and is something that can happen to absolutely anyone. The most common types of fraud in Australia include card fraud, digital fraud, and identity fraud. So, card fraud refers to the unauthorized use of a card to make fraudulent transactions, obtain unauthorized funds, or gain other financial benefits. Digital fraud refers to the unauthorized access of your banking online through fake websites, text messages, social media, or apps. And then identity fraud is when someone steals enough of your personal information to pose as you for either personal or financial gain. Fraudsters can access your information in a few different ways. Skimming devices, which are placed on ATMs or FPOS machines to steal card and PIN details. There's a lot of news about that happening in Victoria last year. That's sort of quite interesting. Information shared on social media or online platforms that can be used to build out your identity. Physical theft, so lost or stolen cards or documents that can be used. Data breaches, so large amounts of personal or card details can be stolen through those. And phishing and scams, so fake emails, texts, websites, or any calls that can trick you into sharing details. Fraud can sort of sometimes be intertwined into scams. This is really important to know because fraud can take money from your accounts. It can actually affect your credit score. They can lead to loans, bills, or criminal activity in your name, and they can actually impact future job or housing opportunities. Knowing how fraud works can help you protect yourselves. Okay, so we'll give you a few tips just to finish off and what you can do to stay safe from fraud. So, protect your information. Never share your PIN, card details, passwords, or security codes with anyone, including your bank. Keep your wallet, devices, and mailbox secure and avoid public Wi-Fi and be aware of who's around you when traveling, even domestically. Make sure you shop smart online. Use trusted websites only. Check the website address for any abnormalities or use their official app if there is one. Avoid saving card or personal details online. I know it's easy, but avoid it if you can. And use a digital card with a dynamic CVC or CVV for extra security. Go talk to your bank if you're sort of wondering what that means. Be aware of what you share. So limit how much personal information you share on social media, gaming platforms, and online store loyalty accounts, and make sure you check your privacy settings and you know who can actually access your information and how much they can access. Know your banking, so regularly check your accounts for unusual transactions or enable debit notifications. And learn what security features your bank offers. However, for us, anyone can access the data breach, phishing, malware, and identity theft checklist from westpac.com.au/security-resource. Make sure you boost your security by using strong, unique passwords and turn on multi-factor authentication wherever possible. And make sure you report quickly, whether that be losing your card identification or you've identified unusual activity. Contact your bank and any relevant government organizations immediately, which we'll go through in a little bit. Scams can happen to anyone. Sometimes people don't realize they are being scammed until it's too late. That's why Westpac has built security features into your banking to help protect your money, and give you time to stop and think before taking action. Some of these protections work in the background, but others are tools you can use directly in the app to stay control. These are two features that are not actually necessarily distinct to Westpac, but that all banks have offered in their own way. So Pay ID, for example, where you can link your phone number or email to your account for safer payments. It helps ensure money goes to the right person by identifying the account ahead of time. And confirmation of payee. So when you add a new payee, now all banks enable you to check whether the account details match the recipient's bank records and provide guidance on the result and potential next steps. It helps prevent payment redirection scams or just even mistaken transfers. These are two of many features in place to keep you safe, but you should ask your bank what features they offer to help keep you and your money safe. And if you need help setting up these features, contact us, visit your local branch, or go to our website for guidance. Just finally, if you've been impacted by a fraud or scam, you should report to your bank immediately. If you're a Westpac customer, you can go to our website. You can report a scam email or an SMS, even if you haven't been victim to it, to hoax@westpac.com.au or 0497 132 032. But then make sure you block and delete the message. But if you don't bank with Westpac, contact your bank to find out how you can report a fraud and scam. If you want any more information, go to cyber.gov.au to report any financial loss, which also comes through back to us. oaic.gov.au, Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, to report any data breaches for any organisations. Scamwatch for scam alerts and advice, moneysmart.gov.au for official warnings and guidance, and of course, ID Care, who are a not-for-profit organisation that offer free support for people affected by scams or identity theft. If you're unsure, talk to your bank or someone you trust, such as a family member or friend. Um, Thank you for taking the time to learn about fraud and scam prevention today. We really recommend you share what you've learned with family and friends. It really could help protect someone you love from a fraud or a scam. And if you're ever unsure, contact your bank or visit our website for support and information. Um, thank you so much. Shall we do some questions?
Thanks so much, Sophie. It's complicated, isn't it?
Mm.
By no means trying to. And it's someone's asked a question:
Yeah.
does Westpac support password managers, or Westpac or any of the banks actually support password managers?
What can I ask what you mean by
Well,
pass?
I guess what you're thinking about. So, if I can just declare
Yeah.
personally, from my own experience, I
Yep.
use a password manager.
Mm,
And it has one master password, and then all of my other passwords are tucked away behind that
yes.
in a fairly encrypted sort of fashion.
Mm,
Um, and I'm guessing the person who's asked that question, sorry, I'm just going to try
yeah.
and scroll up and ask. I think that's Tracy, is asking that, because I do know people
Mm,
have got their little paper books and they've got things written
yeah.
down, or a little fool's cap piece of paper in their filing drawer.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we definitely can. I won't speak for other banks. Just generally other banks
Yep,
have
of
different
course.
capabilities, but yeah, we do.
Yeah. Okay. And um, I think there's another question here. Are there scam risks from a bank-to-bank transfer, that is, from a family member's account to another, two different banks? Are you feeling that's a risk?
Absolutely. So, previously funds tended to go to crypto. We would see that as really risky, and increasingly, a lot of the banks have really restricted funds that can go to crypto. So, increasingly, what we're seeing with scams is not necessarily going to a high risk location like crypto, like remittance, like being withdrawn in cash, things like that, but they're going to other bank accounts because it's seen as safer by a lot of banks. If you think how many people, you can pay that are new every day, it's really hard necessarily for a bank to discern what's usual activity and what's not. We're pretty good at it, but it,
Mm.
it becomes a lot more complicated, and scammers absolutely do know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting question from, I think it's Yana.
Yeah,
Interested to know what are the most common types of reported scam and fraud by older Australians. So
yeah.
her reference is plus, or their reference is plus 60-year-olds.
Yeah, look, it's still in that investment scam category just in terms of financial loss. That
Yeah.
is really common across um all ages essentially, but it absolutely is for over 60s. I would say at that age group we are seeing bond scams, term deposit scams, getting to a point where potentially sold property, potentially sold some assets and wanting to reinvest that in a really safe way, or what a perceived safe way. And so that's when we tend to see really significant losses with funds put into fraudulent term deposits and bonds. But I would also say remote access scams are something that are really disproportionately affecting elderly Australians. They are something that are really complex. It's really hard to know, I think, if you haven't necessarily been engaged with this sort of technology throughout your life, that a bank wouldn't ask you to share your screen, or a lot of these organizations wouldn't ask you to share your screen. That being said, they're so sophisticated, and yeah, look, we definitely see that as an overrepresentation for elderly Australians. Yeah.
Mm. I, I think someone's, oh, gee, it's just whipped past me. We've been getting a bunch of questions pop
Yeah.
up for us. It's an interesting one, and I suspect some of the points you've raised are will be useful for us to package up and think about this. But
Yeah.
how can we try and convince someone, this is from Rachel,
Yeah.
um, who is being scammed in a relationship scam, who thinks they are in an actual relationship? I guess there are some key questions that you've raised earlier that we can prompt people about.
Yeah. Look, romance scams are our hardest scams. They're the ones that affect me the most, because they are really, really difficult. And it is really common for someone who has fallen victim to a romance scam to fall victim to further romance scams as well.
Mm,
I think as much as possible when I talk to romance scam victims, don't poke holes in the relationship, but poke holes in the way that they're moving money. So I think people get really, really defensive when you question their relationship and the validity of it, and you haven't met them, so how do you know they're real? Like it's easy to become really, really defensive. But if you ask questions around, well, maybe the relationship is real, but moving money through gift cards seems like a really unsafe way to spend to transfer money to them, or maybe this account that you're paying, it seems like a brand new account, so maybe that's not the safest way. Often that can kind of be what disconnects victims from that spell, just not confronting the really emotional aspects of a romance scam, but kind of poking holes through the logistics of it specifically can help bring victims away.
mm. And I think the comments that you made, and I don't have any personal experience of this, but I think the comments you made about pausing, waiting,
Yeah.
even if they're being told to, they've got to act now, they can't talk to anybody else, that really that's the wisest
Yeah.
series of moments, really, of taking a moment, really checking it out.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, we know that romance scammers will tend to contact victims late at night when we're feeling lonely, and
mm,
we're more likely to be susceptible to something like that. They're so good at timing it for the moments where we're just less likely to reach out to family members, less likely to kind of think critically about it. They're really good at it. Yeah.
mm. There's a couple of interesting questions here. I'm going to
Mm.
very quickly ask one.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any views about PEXA or any ways to protect oneself in property transactions?
Yeah, so as I said before, business email compromise, there's a view that it only targets businesses, but as a lot of businesses become a lot better at kind of validating their invoices, having extra mechanisms in place, we've seen a lot of that scam type fall to property settlements instead. The thing I would say that's really, really important more than anything else is if you can do the transaction with the agent themselves, if you receive a call of a change in payment details or an update in payment details, make sure you validate that through another method. So don't call back
Mm,
on the phone number you've been given,
yeah.
but validate that through another method. It's fine to kind of bombard your agent or your solicitor with, is this real? Is this real? It's the way to protect yourself, and any really good lawyer, solicitor, agent will be expecting that kind of contact to make sure that the transaction is valid. It's a significant amount of money. You can be annoying about it. It's fine. I
Yep.
think that's the best advice.
Okay. Thank you. And we're going to run out of time. Look, with your permission, Sophie, I'm going to collect these questions and
Yeah.
flick them back to you after we're finished today and see if we can get some responses as well, because there are some great questions in here.
Yeah.
And a comment from someone, do we need to go back to bank checks? But anyway, don't answer that because that'll be a
Okay,
longer,
I'll,
a
I'll answer
longer
this
conversation.
separately.
But look, a really great session, so much good content, so much for us to consider about how we set ourselves up for those of us who manage our own arrangements, of course, but also if we're service providers and we're working with older people,
Yeah.
how we can best advise them. And I think that's an incredibly important takeout. And we'll grab some of the content from today and make it available through EAAA and Compass websites. Thank you so much, Sophie. Great presentation.
Thank you.
It just makes me more nervous about going in and checking my own circumstances.
Yeah.
and passwords and all of those things, and making sure we've ticked the box.
Yeah.
Um, Today's recording will be available later to everyone who's registered and on our website and YouTube channel. Um, and our next one is the 11th of June, and we're going to be joined by a group of Sparkies, and they're our group of older people that provide advice and feedback about what's happening in their lives, what are the trends that are going on. This will be a special World Elder Abuse Awareness Day session. Looking forward to that tremendously. I would encourage any of you who are interested in our conference up in the Gold Coast, if you want a little break from a chilly winter on the East Coast, duck up to Stand Up, Speak Out, 27th to the 29th of July. And I'm running out of time massively here, so I'm just going to say thank you again, Sophie. Thanks, James, for helping us out in the back end of this, and Marissa. There's a really good sessions, and we're looking forward to hearing more feedback for you, Sophie, and sharing some insights back to our delegates and registrants here today. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody, and keep your information protected and safe.